Hey, do you think it's true that people eat with their eyes? Or maybe it's just the eyes that tell the mouth what it thinks is about to happen. Because really your eyes can't taste anything, but what they see can make or break your meal. We're talking about plating and presentation practices today on the Carefree Cooks Code. I'm Chef Todd Moore, and this is the Carefree Cooks Code, every Tuesday live at noon Eastern. Here's our challenge. How can home cooks cook freely with creativity, confidence, and pride while ignoring recipes and still impressing themselves and others with what they cook? Well, the answer is found in becoming empowered with how cooking works, using dependable and repeatable methods of cooking that work for any ingredient, for any diet, and any desire, just like chefs do. And we'll know we've cracked it when everyone sees cooking as an exciting and rewarding way to improve their relationships, their lifestyles, and their health through better food and cooking. This is the Carefree Cooks Code. Hey, welcome back to the Carefree Cooks Code, everyone. This is the weekly show for the methods, the techniques, the insights into better food and cooking, and we're live every Tuesday at noon Eastern Time. If you're looking for any of the past videos, go to my archive on Facebook. It's facebook.com/chef.todd.more/videos. So if you would like to raise your right hand and repeat after me, please everyone rise for the pledge. I'm a carefree cook. I create my own recipes. I bring friends and family together. I learn every time I cook. I create my own cooking style because I practice pro methods and I wind up loving cooking is really what happens. And if you're creating art in the kitchen, if you feel, you're like in that realm, some people just got to get dinner done. They don't care. They simmer pasta. No, they boil pasta. So it's nice and rubbery, and then they pour jarred sauce on it. They eat this 4 or 5 days a week, right? So you don't really care. You're cooking for the end result. That's not who I'm talking about today, right? I'm talking about if you have a sense that you're creating art in your kitchen, then keep in mind that the canvas that you put your art on could be very important. I mean, the canvas that you start out with could mean a classic work of art or pop art confusion, because the canvas is your plate in this analogy, and how you paint the plate has a lot to do with just a few simple principles, but they can make a big difference to your diners. So we're going to talk about that today. But first, I've got a true or false for you today. Tell me in the comment section below, please, one word, true or false. Blue is considered the worst color for plates. True or false in the comment section below. It might be controversial. Who considers it? It's a whole nother deal. But we're going to talk about this from a biological standpoint about blue plates at the end. So stick around. True or false? I think I probably gave it away already. Look, we talk about cooking methods all the time. Tuesday, we talk about cooking methods, dependable, repeatable methods that you can do over and over again regardless of what you're cooking. Thursdays, we get together. I try and give you dependable, repeatable methods so that you don't have to eat what I eat. You do what I do, but then you eat what you eat. And my goal has been to get as many people up and running, all right? As many people looking differently at their kitchens, being able to whip up great meals with ingredients that you already have on hand. And ultimately, the ultimate goal for me is that you're proud of what you've done. When your cooking makes you proud, you're gonna wanna do it every night. I know it. Cooking at home is, again, the topic all over the world. It is returning. It was last year. It is returning to being one of the most important topics in people's lives, no matter where you are on the globe. And everybody is talking about this, but it's our community. It's our Carefree Cooks community that's the one that's solving this problem the quickest. We are on it. We've been doing this for years. We're not passing out recipes, right? And instead of futilely flipping through the pages of a recipe book, which is filled with lists of ingredients that we don't have anyway, it has narrative of confusing, nonsensical instructions. Instead of all this, we Carefree Cooks use the dependable and repeatable methods of cooking, taught in web cooking classes, by the way, to cook any ingredient for any diet or any desire. And I'm going to now add under any circumstance as well, because how powerful is it to be able to go to your pantry, grab this, grab that, grab this, and come up with something great. But look, here's the thing about this. Once you're well on your way to becoming a carefree cook, where cooking is fun and exciting, and you're making consistently great tasting meals that you're proud of, well, then the next step is really to examine not only how they taste, right, but how they look once they're put down in front of the diner. Okay, so all the things that you do in the kitchen to make this a tremendous meal, the diner doesn't know any of that. The diner doesn't know what you went through. Only when it's put down in front of them do they get a sense of what they're about to do. And this right here, this is a seared raw rare tuna and beef tenderloin Napoleon with a cranberry demi-glace, served on lobster mashed potatoes, steamed asparagus. This is created by my catering company chef, the late great chef Greg Razor. There is a sprig of thyme down the middle of it, holding the whole tower together. You know it's going to taste amazing, right? Because of the way it looks. And Chef Greg, people used to say all the time, well, I don't want to touch it because it looks so good, right? One of those meals, like, I don't want to take that apart. I don't want to knock the Napoleon Tower over because it's so beautiful. But ultimately, don't you want to devour it because of the way it looks? Look, while the food preparation is a lot of science in the kitchen, cooking with your eyes, looking for the 4 effects of heat on food, watching for the changes in the food and controlling the heat, it seems a lot, right? All this to arrive at the result you want. It's the plating and presentation that really is mostly art, that is mostly personal expression. You can go any way with it, right? But I always make the argument here, okay? While you can go any way with it, I always make the argument that art without some kind of guidelines is total chaos. And this is a class I used to teach in culinary school. And there is no more chaos, no more culinary chaos than a first-year culinary college student. They are so filled with apple cider vinegar and episodes of Chopped that they've watched or some kind of competition show. It is general chaos without any guidelines. Their art is spewing everywhere. And this is my opinion of modern art. Not a fan, okay? No matter what year it actually is, whether it's 1960 or 2021, there is always a category of art that's called modern art. And when Heather and I were in Paris many years ago, we went to the Pompidou Modern Art Museum. It looks like a gerbil trail on the outside, although I understand it just went through renovation. See, even modern artists say modern. Now, look, I have a respect for all artists. No matter how you expressed your art, I have respect for you. And remember, it's me that always says if it's good to you, then it's good, right? That's what I always say. It's kind of like in the eye of the beholder, right? So if it's good to you, it's good. But in this museum, I remember walking in the front door and there was a pile of dirty laundry on the floor. And I thought, how careless. Somebody left this pile of dirty laundry. Who left the dirty laundry on the floor? It was like sheets and towels and drapery. And then all of a sudden I noticed that the dirty laundry had a velvet rope around it and signs that said, do not touch the art. Do not touch the dirty laundry on the floor. It was art, but it was art without any guidelines. Okay, so call me a traditionalist if you want, but I think you need to start out with some guidelines if you're going to express your art. And then I've got to call upon one of my favorite quotes of all time. I use it all the time. It's from Pablo Picasso, an artist who ignored the guidelines because he knew the path. And it's learn the rules like a pro so you can break them and think like an artist. And that's how I feel about food plating and presentation. Let's learn a few rules first, and then we can go ahead and break them if we want, all right? Because good presentation requires experience, requires a little trial and error, requires a sense of style to justify or highlight the hours of skillful presentation in making your meal, right? You don't want your effort in the kitchen to suffer just from bad presentation, right? And I keep using these terms interchangeably. Plating and presentation, are they the same? Plating and presentation? No, There's actually a difference between plating and presentation, and I'm going to explain that a little later on today. So before all the specifics, let's go through a few of the general rules that are going to apply to everything in presentation and plating. The first is absolutely mandatory in my opinion. Absolutely can't do without it. Rule you cannot break. If you want to impress the diner's available senses, okay, all the senses that the diner is using to eat your food before any of the food goes in their mouth, one of the most powerful ways is with hot food. Cold food is really disappointing, unless the food was meant to be cold, like a salad or something, but hot food always served on warm plates, cold food always on cold plates. You see me do this Thursdays live. The plates always go in the oven. They always get heated somehow. Otherwise, if you put hot food on a cold plate, you get a warm plate with cold food on it. The plate sucks up the heat of the food, is really what it is. Big push in culinary school. Have a plate warmer, a way to warm your plates. Get your oven at home to 170 degrees. You can even submerge them in hot water in your sink and then dry them with a towel. They'll retain the heat. So warm plates, absolutely mandatory. The second thing that's mandatory for the appearance of your food, no matter what else the food it has to be cooked in, no matter how it's cooked, is the correct doneness. All the fresh herbs, all the parsley sprigs in the world are not going to make up for beige food. Bland colors, underdone, seeping bloody liquids, bloody plates. Nothing can make up with that. If it came off the grill, it better have some nice grill marks. If it came out of a saute pan, it should show some caramelization of sugars. It should be nicely browned. If it were steamed, if it were poached, if it were cooked in a moist method, it should also have the correct texture to it. So it doesn't matter how fancy your plate is if the food disappoints once it hits the mouth. You might have got them on the first bite, they're lost on the second. The third must in presentation and plating has to do with portion sizes. And we're gonna go into this a little bit more in depth in just a minute, but huge portions are unappetizing. I don't care how big an eater you think your diner is, you can give them another plate if you want. There is just no way to make a piled high plate from the all-you-can-eat buffet look appetizing. All you gotta do is look at people's plates on the buffet. And not just overall portions, okay? Not just, I'm not judging how much you eat, but it is the relative portion sizes to the other items on the plate that can make your plate appealing or not. Like, are your mashed potatoes dwarfing the meat because it's twice as much? You have beautiful prime rib or anything else that you cook, but you have this gigantic mound of mashed potatoes and it's stealing the attention on the plate. That's not good. Knowing your portion sizes is really important. And I have a few classes on this. In a restaurant, it's the difference between profit and loss. At home, it's your health or not, and your food budget. Know your portion sizes. How many ounces of meat, how many ounces of starch are appropriate on the plate, and then the relative portion sizes to the other items there. Okay, so those three things we need to agree upon, or nothing else is accomplished here. Okay? If you can't agree on no cold plates, on appropriate cooking methods, and correct portion sizes, well, then forget it. Open cans of food and that's good. But I know you're still with me because we still have a lot to talk about here. And this is going to get a lot more exciting, and we're going to talk about those blue plates and these blue glasses here. It's a formal table set at my catering company from years ago. All right, so from there, let's talk about the fundamentals of plating. And if we're talking about expressing your art on a plate, then you gotta respect the frame, okay? A work of art is framed. So the plate is like the canvas and the rim of the plate is like the picture frame. You don't paint on the picture frame. Please keep the paint off the frame. Please keep the food off the rim. If your food is hanging off the side of the plate, well, you either need bigger plates or you really need to examine your portion sizes. If a plate can't hold the food that you eat, you need to solve that problem. And this is the type of thing that drives chefs crazy. Please wipe the rim of your plate. please do. Keep those drippy sauces off the picture frame. That's it. And also try and keep it simple. Too elaborate of a plate can be just as bad as careless, because what you're trying to do ultimately is you're striving for balance. All the best plating and presentation starts with the selection of the food you're going to put on the same plate together. And you should always select foods that offer variety and contrast on the plate. Variety and contrast of colors. Just think about how many colors vegetables come in, except blue. There are no blue vegetables. Think about this. Vegetables are your opportunity to add contrasting colors to the plate. Think about the shapes on the plate as well. If I prepared a plate of, let's say, Swedish meatballs, round new potatoes, and Brussels sprouts, this plate's going to look like a billiard table. It's round, round, and round. There's no contrast of shape here. Think about the contrast of textures on the plate as well. Do a plate of pureed vegetables, mashed potatoes. It's all going to look like baby food on the plate, right? Have some crispy things. Have some steamed things. Have some soft things. Have some harder things on the same plate. The second fundamental of plating has to do with portioning. And as I mentioned earlier, it's really important to match the portion sizes to the plate sizes. Okay, so if your plate is too small, the dish looks really confused and overcrowded. If your plate is too large, then your portions are going to look lost on the plate. They look skimpy. It's a good balance of size between the items on the plate that can make the entire meal look better. And look, don't try and fill up space on a plate just because there's room to do it. This is a compulsion of people. I've been to restaurants where they served me more Brussels sprouts than I can possibly eat in 2 days. I've been to restaurants where you get piles of French fries, mounds of pasta that no human being could possibly eat at one sitting. And the restaurant owner, I talked to the guy that owned the pizza place across the street in Baltimore. He told me it shows value. He told me people like leftovers. He told me people like getting a deal. And I mean, that's fine for the restaurant. If the restaurant wants to give the person a second meal that they could then come back and spend money for. If the restaurant wants what was good the night before, has all the butter congeal in the refrigerator overnight and stuff, you're losing future business because you got beer goggles and the leftover food. It's terrible. So that's fine for the restaurant if they want to waste food and make you overeat trying to show you the value you're getting, but not at home. You don't need to do this at home. You don't need to waste food. You don't need to overeat. You're not trying to show value to your spouse. That's not the idea. People in your home are already getting the meal for free. There's no need to sell them on a value proposition with a huge portion, okay? So the main item should be the center of attention on your plate. Don't ever let the side dishes upstage the main event. And I see this all the time. Ask yourself, you're putting the meal together, who's supposed to be the star? Who's the star of this dish? Is it the beautiful chicken, or is it the mound of pasta that's going to hide that gorgeous chicken parmesan that you spent all the time pounding it thin, using the 3-part breading procedure, browning it under conductive heat, finishing it to a precise internal temperature under convective heat, making a great sauce with the tomato concasse, melting the cheese perfectly on the top so it's like oozing down the side, and then garnishing with these really skillfully chopped fine herbs that you can smell wafting up under your nose. It's fantastic. But then you hide it under a mound of pasta that would have choked Caesar. Appropriate total portions and appropriate relative portions to each item on the plate. Third is the arrangement of the items on the plate. Again, the main item, usually a protein product, the meat item, the main vegetarian item, should always be closest to the diner. And then the side items should always be subordinate to the main item on the menu, all right? And the same thing on the plate. So think about this. Think about a menu description. You go to a restaurant and the menu description would not say, mashed potatoes and steamed carrots served with a sauteed chicken breast, right? It would be the other way around on the menus. Chicken breast, sauteed chicken breast served with mashed potatoes. So the plate needs to reflect this as well. And as I said before, keep the stuff off the picture frame, please. Always arrange the items for the convenience of the diner. This is a small thing that people don't realize because there's a mental component to this. If you have a dipping sauce or like a little ramekin on the plate, don't put it on the opposite side of the plate. If you have something hot and steaming, fajitas or something like that, don't make them reach across it and burn their arms. Keep items in logical progression of the meal that they're going to eat. Keep space between the items. Don't crowd them together. Each item on a plate really should have its own identity, but they shouldn't look like they hate each other. It shouldn't be apartheid on your plate. I know a lot of people have a compulsion not to let their food touch. I'm married to one, and that's okay. Once you give them the plate the way you want to design it, which is what I do, then they can go ahead and push all the food aside, all right? But that's not the way you want to present it. There should not be any blank space in the middle of the plate. That's the prime real estate. That's where the diner's eye goes to first. It's the center of focus, so don't ever leave it blank. The items on your plate, they don't need to social distance, okay? But they shouldn't be so close either that they're sharing fluids. You know what I mean? Where like bloody fluid from the meat gets into the mashed potatoes, your burger kind of soaks the fries. That has to do with resting the burger first. It's a whole nother lesson, but they shouldn't be that close, all right? A little more social distance than that. And this is important. A plate is a lot more attractive when it looks like a meal of related items. Okay, so this is how a chef would think. It is a composition of related items. It is not, I'm serving you, boom, mashed potatoes. Here's a bunch of string beans, right? That's how a chef would arrange the plate in an a la carte restaurant. There would be a plan to it. It's a presentation that's thought about quite a lot. The opposite end of that, if you want to see the worst plating in the world ever, watch people do it themselves on a buffet line. Trust me, I have worked a lot of weddings. I have had to watch my beautiful maple bourbon chicken. I make this maple bourbon sauce that was a just big hit at my catering company. If it went on a buffet, I once watched a guy put his salad on top of my maple bourbon chicken. Salad, lettuce, on top of the maple bourbon chicken on his plate, and then put like a blue cheese dressing on top of it. I had to watch his salad dressing invade my maple bourbon sauce. I wanted to just like knock the plate out of his hand, because to me the whole meal was ruined just because of the way Uncle Joe put it together on the plate. I mean, oh my God, I just can't watch buffets sometimes. So, all right, off on a tangent again. Fourth, let's focus on the garnish and make it count. What you garnish your plate with is another opportunity to add color contrast. If you have cauliflower and mashed potatoes on the same plate, I'd get some green herbs on there quick for garnish. How about slivered chives on the mashed potatoes to add a little bit of color contrast to an otherwise white and white plate? But here's a great trick that you can do with the garnish. You can use garnish as a bridge to add balance to the plate. So all the things that I mentioned 25 minutes ago, if you have a plate of all similar textures, if you have a plate of all similar colors, crispy bacon bits on mashed potatoes, right? Mashed potatoes, very soft, very mushy. Add something crunchy like bacon bits. Chow mein noodles on an Asian dish, okay? So contrast of texture is important. And this is important too. Always use the garnish to communicate to the diner, to help them identify what's in the item. And this is especially important for diners and for food that might cause an allergic reaction, or someone that might be on a restricted diet. If it's a mushroom risotto, put a mushroom slice on top of it. It's one sauteed mushroom slice to tell the diner what it is. Somebody might be allergic to fungi. Never garnish with a food that is not in the dish. That's another rule. Don't just go throwing parsley on everything. Parsley is vacuous. It's vapid. It has no flavor. It's all water. If there's not parsley in the dish, please don't garnish your plates with it. It confuses your diner. You can't put flowers on the plate unless you're about to eat the flowers as an ingredient too. And that's where we cross the line between plating and presentation. And that's where we're headed next. You could even consider sauces as a garnish, as long as they complement the dish, as long as your sauces don't hide the grill marks, as long as your sauces don't hide caramelization of sugars, then they should go on the bottom. Sometimes it's better to sauce the hot plate first and then put your chicken breast or your portobello mushroom cap plated on top of the sauce. You've got that beautiful color on the item. Why would you hide it with the sauce at the very end, right? You could also stripe the plate with the sauce, not cover the entire item, but put a stripe over it. And you'd hope, of course, that the sauce is of a contrasting color, right? To give it that extra eye appeal. And again, this is where plating and presentation, this is where the line is drawn. I told you that I was going to explain the difference a little earlier, and I think I just did. If you put an orchid on your plate, like they do for everything in Hawaii, it's presentation. Presentation is that extra bit. Presentation is outside the dish. Presentation is the flash that goes off before plating. So simply, plating is how you put the items on the plate. All the things we just talked about having to do with balance, of contrast, of arrangement, of temperature, even the selection of what you cook, how you cook it, how much you put on the plate, that all has to do with plating. But presentation is what happens once the food is plated up. So we can highlight or accentuate the best parts of what we just spent time in the kitchen creating. And you got to stop to think about the presentation of the plate. Who's going to eat it? And that starts with the garnishing. So if you cooked with orchids and there are orchids in the rice, then the orchid is a garnish, okay? It's part of the plating. If there's no orchids in the dish and you put the flower on top at the very end, then it's part of the presentation. But certainly garnishing can be presentation too. Garnishing can be elaborate, it can be entertaining, but garnishing should always communicate what's in the dish and help improve the plate appeal, how it was plated. So the garnishing becomes presentation when it's that extra zip, that last moment thought, the inspiration right before the plate goes out to the dining room that makes your plate really a work of art, that shows some kind of inspiration, a small extra something to the plating to improve the presentation. You got it? So you can cut polenta or potatoes gratin or little new potatoes into shape. I've seen people carve potatoes into the shape of a mushroom and steam them. It's really cute on the plate. In culinary school, students have to learn how to do tournier potato. It's a very annoying thing. This means cutting 7 perfectly consistent slices from the top to the bottom of a red potato so you make the 7-sided football shape. It's tedious. Nobody but the finest, fanciest restaurants do it. It takes a lot of practice, but I still had to teach it to the students, okay? But it does make the plate look really cool. Your carved up potatoes, much better than a plain potato. I've served diamond-shaped grit cakes with sautéed shrimp. It makes the plate look like a work of art. There's a lot of contrast of shapes on there because it's much better than just plopping a spoonful of grits onto the plate. Use a biscuit cutter for cutting rounds of au gratin potatoes or cornbread. Cookie cutters aren't just for Christmas time. You can cut broiled garlic bread into shapes with a cookie cutter. You can make a risotto star or a paella half moon, right? Because this stuff, those rices will hold their shape. And you've seen me do it many times, molding my vegetables and starches. I normally put things on a round ramekin and then invert it on the plate so that my rice has a shape to it instead of just like a random pile of rice. And this is a cool tool. This is a timbal. It's a metal ring that you can put on a plate, fill it with layers of food, and then pull the ring away, and you get a tower of anything that you want. A really big food trend for a while was tall food. You can dress up dessert plates also with powdered sugar that you sprinkle over a stencil or a lace cut doily to make a pattern on the plate. You can add height to plates with herb sprigs, make what's called filigree shapes to the plate. In a bake shop, you'd make chocolate filigree, tempered chocolate shapes to put on a slice of cake. But you can do this in the savory kitchen as well. And this is the last thing I'm going to share with you today. It's a deep chef secret. You might want to try this in the kitchen because it's a lot of fun. It's especially a lot of fun with kids, a good way to get kids in the kitchen. It's called Hip and Mas. Kids even like the name. Get them to say Hip and Mas. They like that. Hip and Mas is a pourable cookie batter that holds its shape when it's cooled, when you bake it, and you can make all kinds of different shapes with it. Here, it's a piped out lattice work that then you put over something round like a tin can and let it cool, and it comes into a round shape. It's really something. So here's the formula for Hip and Mas if you want it. Take a screenshot right now. Make funny faces, screenshot. There's your formula for Hip and Mouse. Hip and Mouse. Hip and Mas. At Disney World, they call it Hip and Mouse. 2 ounces of egg by weight, egg white by weight. So that's about 57 grams of egg white. 1 ounce of flour, about 28 grams of flour. 3/4 of an ounce of heavy cream, about 21 grams. Shake it all up. Put it in a plastic squeeze bottle, draw shapes with it on parchment paper, bake it at 350 until it browns up like a cookie, 350 Fahrenheit, which is what, 160 or so, 165 Celsius. Use it as a decoration on the plate. Really fancy, fun thing to do. Kids love doing as well. Take a screenshot of your Hip and Mas or Google it later. Look, cooking your own food in your own home and being proud of the results has really become more important than ever before, and I could not be happier about that one fact. I'm not happy about the circumstances of which this occurred, but I feel my unique approach to teaching cooking is needed now more than ever, and I will gladly answer that call, because once you find what you do in your kitchen fun and rewarding, a way to improve your overall lifestyle, health, and relationships through better food and cooking, it's time to boost up that pride in what you've done. And boosting pride has to do with the plating and presentation practices you start putting into your own meals starting tonight. Before you even start to cook, think about what you'll garnish the item with, what it might look like at the end, what the plate is going to look like at the end. And that white plate, that should be a white plate that you put things on. I really didn't touch on that today, but the reason that the art store doesn't sell multicolored blue canvases, they sell white canvases at the art store because it is a neutral background for a painter to put paint on. It's really hard to paint on a blue canvas. So blue plates are the absolute worst color for food. Now, I'm going to leave you with something to think about for the next 24 hours. And I want you to think about this. And you can comment in the comment section below right now if you want. Beside blueberries, which are actually kind of a deep purple, beside blueberries, because someone right now is saying blueberries, beside blueberries, think of a food that is blue. Name a blue food. You can't do it. Yep, there are purple potatoes, I know. There are beets, but they're not blue. So if blue is not a natural food color, it has got to be the worst color to put food on. No? I mean, I'm not trying to make you feel badly about the blue plates you own right now. That wasn't my goal. I've owned blue plates in the past. You see them in some of my photos. But here's the thing. I want you to think about what happens to the human eye when you put something green on a blue plate. The human eye sees gray. Green on blue is a mix of gray. And you can take the most perfectly cooked, skillfully garnished, artfully presented asparagus on a blue plate, and the human brain is not going to see it as appetizing. Put it on a white plate, and everything changes. So, there are a lot of green foods, right? So a blue plate, just really not a good idea for presentation and plating. And now I know you're thinking about the blue plate special. Hey, Chef Todd, what about the blue plate special? It actually did come on a blue plate, and I'll tell you the lore behind the blue plate special some other time. Ultimately came down to somebody bought really cheap blue plates. Look, if you know someone who is cooking really good food lately, really expressing their art, and you suspect they might be really proud of themselves for doing it, please like, love, share this video with them so their plates can look as good as they taste. And you know, one of the best ways to keep your diners visually excited with new presentations is to add more variety to your cooking. And I can show you how to bring 5 times more variety and 5 times more flavor into your cooking with just one powerful pro kitchen practice. When you go to webcookingclasses.com/5times, you can register for this week's free online class that will empower you to take just one of your common everyday dishes, something you cook all the time, and I'll show you how to turn it into 5 dishes quickly and easily. Go to webcookingclasses.com/5times for this week's free online class if you like what we talked about today. So until next Tuesday at noon Eastern Time, this is Chef Todd Moore reminding you that there's a method to your prettiest cooking success. Bye, everyone.